Bore da a chroeso I gynhadledd hon yn dod eleni o Sir Flint. Good morning and a very warm welcome to the 96th Annual Conference of the Federations of Wales, which is being streamed from Clwyd Flint. Gan nad ydyn ni'n gallu canu Jerusalem, rydym yn mynd i chwarae recordiad o'r aelodau yn canu Jerusalem yn y neuadd Albert Llundain. Mae na wrth gwrs croeso I chi ganu o gytre. As we are unable to sing Jerusalem, we are going to play a recording of members singing Jerusalem at the Albert Hall, London. Please feel free to sing along at home. Hosted by Clwyd Flint Federation and organised by the Wales Committee. It is the highlight of the WI's year in Wales. Mae'n bleser gen I groesawu'r bobl fel gwahoddigion. It is my very pleasant pleasure to welcome the following guests and people to our meeting today. Our speakers at this meeting are Rhian Connick, the head of the NFWI Wales office, Gerald Stone, Vice Chairman of NFWI, Dr. Christian Dunn, Bangor University, Tamara Harvey, the Artistic Director of Theatr Clwyd. Guests are Faye Mansell, the former NFWI chair, John Davis, president of NFU, Myrwen Lloyd, Llywydd Merched y Wawr, Arian Roberts, chair-elect to the Federation of Wales, and former chairs of the Federation of Wales, Marilyn Haynes-Evans, Audrey Jones and Bethan Williams. From the NFWI, Lynn Stubbings, the chair of NFWI, Anne Jones, NFWI Vice Chairman and past chair of NFWI Wales, Julia Roberts, the Honorary Treasurer of NFWI, and Melissa Green, the General Secretary of NFWI. From the Wales office, we have Lisa Howells, the Events Coordinator, Sarah Hughes-Thomas, Public Affairs Officer, and Kelly Rosser, the Admin Assistant. And lastly, we have the committee members, each of whom is a chair of their own federation. Glyn Owen of Anglesey, Leslie Jones, Ceredigion, Enid Brown, Clwyd Flint, Enid Brown, Clwyd Denby. Sorry, Enid, rhaid I fi wneud gamgymeriad rwle. Celia Rogers, Clwyd Flint, Carol Atkinson of Glamorgan, Jill Rundle of Gwent, Margaret Lloyd-Jones of Gwynedd Carnarfon, who has also served in the past as the Chair of Wales, Ira Lewis, Gwynedd Meirionydd, Jenny Longland, Pembrokeshire, Mary Robinson, Powys Brecknock, Margaret Jones, Powys Montgomery, Liz Watkins, Powys Radnor, and Anne Halbug, Sir Gar. We have apologies today from Donna Lewis, the National Centre of Learning Welsh, and Sarah Jones of Welsh Netball. We have a welcome today. Celia Rogers ddim yn gallu fod dan ni yn bersonol heddi. And as Celia Rogers, the chair of Clwyd Flint, is unable to be with us physically today, I will invite Arian Roberts to read a welcome that Celia has prepared. Diolch yn fawr ti, Arian.
Bore da. Good morning and a welcome to Flintshire and to the 96th NFWI Wales Conference. Clwyd Flint Federation has 958 members with 33 WIs, one with over 100 members and two with between 60 and 70 members, and the rest have between 20 and 30 members. We also have 3 WI advisors who have been very busy during the lockdown, advising members of the correct procedures to follow, and I know this has been the same with the rest of you. Flintshire is small but diverse. The east of the county borders with the River Dee and is industrial, and the west is more rural. Most traffic enters Flintshire over the third river crossing, known as the Flintshire Bridge, built in 1998 to ease the traffic congestion in Queen's Ferry and Shotton. It is known locally as the Bridge to Nowhere, as there has not been much improvement. Flint Castle is one of many tourist attractions, having been built in 1277 by Edward I, along with 4 other castles which form the Iron Ring. The intention was to keep the Welsh under control, but I'll leave it to for you to decide if he succeeded. At the northern tip of the county is Point of Ayr Lighthouse. This recorded as being the oldest lighthouse in the United Kingdom. It was built to guide shipping into Liverpool Bay from the Irish Sea, which is a very dangerous piece of coastline, with many shipwrecks, most notably the Royal Charter. The lighthouse now is privately owned. However, the area around the lighthouse is an RSPB reserve and a site of special scientific interest. The cycle path, which covers the whole of the coast of the Wales, is also close by. Another landmark, of course, is Moel Famau, which is Flintshire's answer to Snowdon. This is very popular with walkers, as there are several tracks to the summit, some easier than others. The area around the country park has now been classed as an area of outstanding natural beauty since 1985. Môl Famau straddles the Flintshire-Denbighshire border, but as the tourist information is in Flintshire, we class it as our own. But I'm sure Enid from Clwyd Denby will have different opinion. Môl replaced Flint as the county town many years ago, and this is where Daniel Owen, the Welsh novelist, was born and grew up. He is regarded as the foremost Welsh language novelist of the 19th century and the first significant novelist to write in Welsh. A statue of Daniel Owen is located outside the library in Mold. Finally, just outside Mold is the village of Harton and is one of the 4 times Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, William Ewart Gladstone. A descendant of Gladstone still live in Hawarden Castle. So as you can see, Flintshire is a very interesting county to visit, and I hope once the country is back to some sort of normality, you may consider a visit and you will be certain to receive a warm welcome from the Clwyd Flint members. Enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Celia.
Diolch yn fawr, Eirian, am hynna. Wel, mae'r agenda nawr yn gweud bod rhaid I fi roi cyflwyniad. So, dyma ni'n dechrau. The agenda at the moment says that it's my turn, so here I am. Thema'r gynhadledd hon leni yw mae'r byd I gyd yn llwyfan. The theme of this year's conference is All the World's a Stage. This is the phrase that begins a monologue from William Shakespeare's pastoral comedy, As You Like It, spoken by the melancholy Jacques in Act 2, Scene 7. Of course, the monologue is not actually about the theatre. The theatrical reference is just a way of introducing what Shakespeare really wants to convey, which is an outline of a person's journey from birth to the grave. The idea of a person's life being no more than a brief appearance on a stage is something that fascinated Shakespeare. Macbeth sees his life in that way. You strut about and stress on the stage, but all these passions and indeed everything you do in life is meaningless, as at the end of that, you just disappear. Having metaphorically strutted about on the stage for the last 4 years of my time as Wales of Federation of Wales chairman, and that is drawing to a close, I just hope that my endeavours over recent years haven't been in vain, and that, unlike Macbeth, I can look back with some satisfaction on my term of office. One thing's for sure, I have no intention of disappearing. It's hard to believe that 4 years have passed by since I was first elected as chair of the Federation of Wales Committee. I shall never forget that day in 2017, that feeling of elation and trepidation rolled into one. And who would have predicted what was to come? But in those halcyon days in the summer of 2017, I realised that I was privileged to be heading up a thriving organisation in Wales that was going from strength to strength, embracing change and taking on challenges with great aplomb. The WI has always been ahead of its time, and a number of campaigns developed from resolutions proposed by federations and WIs in Wales have had a great impact on society. In response to a postcode lottery of contraceptive care and advice, in 1972, a resolution on family planning from the Anglesey Federation called on government to make it mandatory for all local authorities to provide full, free family planning service. The NFWI was one of the first organisations to talk about HIV and AIDS following a resolution submitted by Crickhowell WI in 1986. The WI actually managed to change people's perception of AIDS, and through that mandate gave us a chance to work on the campaign and prove that as an organisation we have never failed to put our foot in the water and to cause ripples. As far back as 1938, and yes, that was even before I was born, a resolution from Gwynedd Carnarvon Federation stressed that urgent need for shorter hours, better pay and better conditions generally for nurses was needed. In 1999, a resolution from Five Roads and District WI, just down the road from me in Carmarthenshire, called on the government to address the decline of the agricultural industry, and in 2002, the resolution by Penabont Fawr in Powys called on stricter controls on the importation of foodstuffs into the United Kingdom, all of which are equally important and relevant today. Of course, as I reflect to my 4 years in the chair, the first years will be quickly forgotten, and my memories will be dominated by the trials and tribulations of the last 12 months. Just about every walk of life has been affected by the COVID pandemic, and the WI has been no exception. Although I don't have the actual figures, I'm sure we have lost many faithful members to the dreaded coronavirus. I want to pay tribute to the lives and memories of those who we have lost, many well before their time. The last year has been challenging for us all, and I know that I speak for all our members when I pay tribute to the thousands of people employed by the NHS who have worked tirelessly to tackle the coronavirus outbreak, and similarly to the thousands of other key workers who have helped us see our way through the pandemic. I can't thank them enough, and so many of these heroes are WI members, as we saw in a recent edition of WI Life. Throughout these difficult times, the WI has maintained its place in the heart of our communities, as it has done for over 100 years. We have always been there, supporting those in need through difficult times. Some of the most important work has been to prioritise social interactions in order to help combat loneliness and improve mental health. The WI is nothing if not resilient. This last year and a half has been one full of challenges for us all, in one way or another, and has given us the opportunity to change. Many millions of people in the UK have become accustomed to working from home. A vast majority have met the challenge, and many will tell you that they will never go back to the old way of working. WIs and federations have boldly taken the challenge to host virtual meetings or subgroup events. Use of technology like this is a fantastic way to keep in touch with and support members through the recent months. Who would have dreamed that we would all have become computer experts overnight? International Women's Day on March the 8th, the theme of which this year was Choose to Challenge. And I hope that perhaps we can see that we met any challenges and chose to take them forward. There have been little changes to the way that we do things that are designed to help the general membership. For instance, we have moved our subscription due date from the 1st of January to the 1st of April in order to ease the financial burden of members just after Christmas. This is something that we will continue to have in future years. We have also allowed for changes in our constitution to enable digital meetings to take place. We have introduced flexibility for WIs to set their part of the subscription to meet our local needs. It will be a different way of working, but on the other hand, it makes us what we are. we are able to take control of our own destiny and meet those new challenges. As a Federations of Wales Committee, we have worked hard to ensure that whatever we deliver is linked to both the National Federation and individual WIs. We have to be careful that although we are the Federations of Wales, we are a country and also have a community, and those two must link well in order to move forward. While we have missed meeting up with old friends at the Royal Welsh and the National Eisteddfod, I also hope that you've enjoyed meeting us on Zoom for our various campaign and public affairs chats, as well as the more practical social media training. As we move forward, please feel free to put ideas forward for events and themes for the Royal Welsh Show so that we can help you to have what you need and what you want to see delivered and developed. Technology is, of course, playing an increasingly important role in our everyday lives, but at the end of the day, we are social animals. We crave contact with others for support, well-being and entertainment. Nothing compares to living in real communities and spending actual physical time with people we respect and enjoy being with. Why is human interaction so important? For one thing, it's important for our mental health. Social contact helps us to cope with stress and major life changes like divorce, redundancy, moving house, and many other things. And knowing that we are valued by others is an important psychological factor in helping us to forget the negative aspects of our lives and to think positively about our environment. There's compelling evidence to suggest human contact is also vital to our physical health too. Researchers have cited evidence linking a low quantity or quality of social ties with a host of conditions, including the development and worsening of cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, cancer, and slow wound healing. There we are then. As I've always said to my husband, Ralph, the WI is really good for my health and well-being, and now it's official. As an organisation, we've always met on a face-to-face basis, and indeed that will be our goal for some stage in 2021. The sooner the better, I'm sure we all feel. However, in the meantime, whilst many people feel reluctant to venture out, it is vitally important that we ensure that virtual meetings continue for the foreseeable future. In the long term, I think we will embrace the blended approach, and that will allow members to be part of what's going on, even when they are unable to attend real live meetings. There is an increasing trend for new WIs being formed, and they are totally virtual. As I prepare to take my final bow as chairman of the federations, I want to mention that many federations will have a special anniversary to celebrate this year, and I wish them all very many congratulations. As I have said, the WI goes from strength to strength. There are many good reasons for being a member of the WI, but for me, the most important thing is friendship. I have made lifelong friends through the organisation, and as we face the post-pandemic world together, I hope that I will make many more new friends. As I have said, this is my last meeting as chairman, and my time on centre stage is drawing to a close. I hope you will all join me in thanking the supporting cast who have steered me through the various scenes over the last 4 years. I thank all the staff within our organisations. Without them, wherever they are, nationally or at federation level, we would not have been able to achieve as much as we have done. However, I must pay a special tribute to Rhian, Lisa, Sarah and Kelly, the staff of the Wales office, who have worked behind the scenes in all instances and to ensure that everything that is delivered on time and well. And indeed, that everything that we come up with is delivered, even though in some instances that has been at very short notice and the timescale has been challenging. But that did not faze them. Thank you, girls, from the bottom of my heart. Mae wedi fod yn anrhydedd ac yn fraint I fod yn y swydd yma. Rwyf wedi ymuno â phob ffederasiwn yng Nghymru, i'ch dathliadau, i'ch cyfarfodydd ac i'ch digwyddiadau. Mae wedi fod yn pleser, diolch yn fawr. It has been an honour and a privilege to be in this role, having visited every federation in Wales to join in your celebrations, meetings and events. It has been a very great pleasure. Thank you so much for your welcome. And finally, to quote the bard one last time, adieu, 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 remember me. Diolch yn fawr. Na ni, reit, ni'n symud ma'n nawr. Jyst a bod I gyd ar amser I cyflwyniad adroddiad Pwyllgor Gwaith, report of the work that we have, and Rhian Connick, the Pennaeth Swyddfa Cymru, head of the NFWI Wales, will present this. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. Madam Cadeirydd, Gwahoddedigion ac aelodau, Madam Chair, guests and members. Welcome to you all to this most unusual of conferences. But looking at the screen has become the new norm, but hopefully not for too much longer. This report of work captures the work completed in the past 2 years, and although we have been in lockdown, it is surprising what can still be achieved. Some of our project work has had to be halted, such as the walk in netball. However, the online Welsh language course was ideal for lockdown, and it has been very well received. It was launched in July 2019 in collaboration with the National Centre for Learning Welsh and is a learning service exclusively for the benefit of WI members. The 10-hour course of 6 units allows WI members to learn Welsh in their own time at their own pace, so helping to increase the number of Welsh speakers in the organisation. We have also developed an informal buddy system, which is going well and providing opportunities to practice the language. The Natural Heritage Project to preserve, protect and plant urban trees came to an end in March 2020 and a final project report produced. This successful project saw over 210 WIs participate, engaging with 65 community groups. Over 5,000 trees were surveyed and over 6,000 trees planted. In total, members dedicated 10,080 voluntary hours to the project, a monetary value of £1,984,000. Thank you to all the members who participated in the project and who continue to look after their trees. You are doing a fantastic job in protecting the trees and the environment. Our thanks go to the National Lottery Heritage Fund for their financial support and for their kind comments of the completion of the project. They said, the final report for the project is fantastic. I am sad that this project is ending. It has been one of my firm favourites. You and all project participants should be very proud of what you have achieved. As part of the project, we held 2 photographic competitions of trees in the spring and autumn and received over 300 wonderful photographs. And congratulations to the winners. In the spring, Sian Pontin, Glam Girls WI Glamorgan Federation took first prize, and in the autumn, the winner was Joanne Ellie, Olney WI, Buckinghamshire Federation. We hope to pick this project back up once the restrictions are lifted, as there is still much to do with trees. As previously mentioned, the walking netball project had to be halted due to the pandemic. However, just before lockdown, we held 2 walking netball activators courses in Llanelli and St Asaph, and 26 members trained as activators to take the project forward in their federations. I know some of you had started to enjoy playing and have been engaged with the online sessions organised by Netball England, but hopefully you will be able to get back on the court soon. Thank you to Sport Wales and Welsh Netball for their continued support. Public Affairs has continued to be busy and very successful. Our most recent campaign is on rural broadband and mobile connectivity. Over recent months, we have been working with Wales YFC, NFU Cymru, the Farmers Union of Wales and the CLA on the issue of digital connectivity. In February, we launched a survey which received 611 responses, and we are planning to launch the survey findings in June in a joint event with our partner organisations. We will produce an action pack later in the summer for WI members and others to find out more about the sources of support available to improve their broadband connectivity, and also ideas on action that they can take to highlight their experiences to decision makers if they are being affected by poor broadband or mobile coverage, or are facing barriers in improving their access. Thank you to those of you who completed the survey, and keep an eye out for further information and actions. Our commitment to the elimination of violence against women continues. In 2019, over 100 delegates attended the cross-party stakeholder event at the Cynhadledd on the 25th of November, sponsored by Joyce Watson MS and chaired by Mike Stevens. And a candlelit vigil took place on the steps of the Cynhadledd the same day. In 2020, we held 2 virtual events on the 23rd of November, again sponsored by Joyce Watson. The first, a cross-party stakeholder event, focused on violence against women in rural communities, and a discussion was held on the current challenges in terms of delivering services in rural communities, the challenges for victims in reaching out and accessing support, and also an opportunity to explore potential solutions. Later in the day, a candlelit vigil was held and brought people together to show solidarity with victims of violence against women across the world ahead of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Jointly chaired by Mike Stevens and Joyce Watson, supporters were addressed by Jane Hutt, Deputy Leader and Chief Whip, a survivor of domestic abuse, Steve Garrett, White Ribbon Ambassador, and Dame Vera Baird, Victims Commissioner for England and Wales. During the vigil, a video was shared showing the journey of the campaign since 2012, and delegates took part in sharing photographs of their lit candles on Twitter. The Not In My Name competitions were held in 2019 and 2020, and congratulations go to Rita Freeman, Bagshot WI Surrey Federation, who won the competition in 2019 with a calligraphy and word art picture, and to Jennifer Poole, Freystrop and District WI, Pembrokeshire Federation, on with her winning car sticker entry in 2020. Climate change continues to dominate our agenda, and NFWI Wales has signed up as a partner of the Stop Climate Chaos Cymru's coalition's new campaign, Climate.Cymru, which is being led by the Wales Centre for International Affairs. This campaign hopes to take over 50,000 voices from Wales to the UN Climate Change Conference, COP26, in Glasgow this November, to demand evidence-based climate action from our leaders. If the campaign reaches 1,000 supporters by June, the plan is to send an ice sculpture to the Cynhadledd. Climate.Cymru also wants to showcase some of the exciting action being taken in Wales in response to the climate and nature emergencies, and you can add your voice on the Climate.Cymru website. As you are aware, the Cynhadledd elections will take place on the 6th of May, and NFWI Wales launched a manifesto which includes key asks relating to the campaigns that we would like to see supported by all political parties and candidates standing in the election. You can find the manifesto on MyWI or contact the Wales office for a copy, and please do share it with your local and regional candidates. Using the opportunities that technology offered us, we held 3 webinars in the past years. The first was in June 2020 on World Environment Day and was a webinar on trees, health and the environment. Speakers included Tom Jenkins from Forest Research Wales and Jason Cockins and Leslie Parker from Hafal. Then in July, we held an event to raise awareness about the importance of cervical screening and to learn about the challenges to improving uptake, both prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and in the months to come as services return to normal. The speakers included Linda Wood, Cervical Screening Wales, WI member Bex Raven, and Dr. Sam Godfrey, Cancer Research UK. In October, an event was organised to engage members in the Not In My Name campaign and raise awareness about violence against women. Speakers included Joyce Watson, Yasmin Khan, National Advisor for Violence Against Women, Gender-Based Violence, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence, Anthea Sully, White Ribbon UK, and Gwendolyn Stirk and Jordan Brewer, Welsh Women's Aid. Members also discussed in small groups how they could get involved in the Not In My Name campaign and in the wider community action to support survivors and service providers. We also delivered 4 training sessions. In August and October, Digital Communities Wales delivered a How to Use Zoom session. We held a course on facilities management, and in November, a session on the use of social media was developed by Wales Council for Voluntary Action. We were saddened by the cancellation of the Royal Welsh Show and the Eisteddfod. But in 2019, the Rose Bowl competition winners for produce and handicraft on the theme Bees and Trees was Gwynedd Carnarvon Federation, and the Brecon Cup went to Glamorgan Federation. In the Winter Fair, the winners were Moira Davies, Gwent Federation for 5 Christmas cake toppers. Eleri Thomas Ceredigion won the lantern in the craft section, and Powys Montgomery won the floral art, Woodland in Wonderland. And congratulations go to all the winners. At the Eisteddfod, the NFWI Wales trophies for the best and runner-up stand from the voluntary sector were won by the British Heart Foundation and Mudiad Maithrin respectively, and the community award went to Pentravoilus Village. As the major events have been cancelled again this year, we intend to hold a summer festival on the 30th of July. It will be an online event which will include a mixture of competitions and demonstrations. The summer festival is open to members in England, Wales and the islands. There will be something to suit everyone's taste. From photography, craft and artwork to dance, fitness, poetry and song, there are a wide range of competitions on offer for members to enter. The closing date for entry is the 18th of June, and please take a look at the schedule and enter some of the events. I am sure it will be great fun, and further information can be found on my WI. To finish, I would just like to say a few thank you to the Wales Committee for their continued support and hard work, to the NFWI Wales staff for their continued commitment to the WI, to Lisa for taking on the challenge of arranging Wales's first online conference, to Sarah for her incredible work on public affairs, and to Kelly for all her work on the tree project and her excellent IT skills, which we would be lost without. I am fortunate to have such great colleagues who have kept me going during this last year. To Mair for guiding us successfully during the past 4 years. It has been a pleasure to work with you, Mair. You have achieved a lot and embraced the challenges thrown at you, and you can indeed look back with satisfaction. Mair's favourite saying is, "I've been thinking." And when we hear those words, we think, oh no, what's coming now? But they were always excellent ideas, Mair. So thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr I ti am pob dim. And to you, the members, thank you for all that you have done throughout the past year to support each other, us and your communities. The power of the WI has certainly never been more evident, and you have truly been inspirational women. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr, Rhian. Mae'n amlwg bod ni wedi wneud sy'n gymaint o bethau yn yr amser sydd wedi mynd heibio. Bod ni gyd wedi bod o aros yn gytre, ond mae pethau wedi digwydd. Thank you, Rhian, for everything that you have done. It's obvious that although we have been supposedly at home and confined, that has not been the case for the WI here in Wales. We have done a tremendous amount of work. We will continue to do a tremendous amount of work, and I'm sure that that will continue under everybody's guidance. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi. Nawr, ni'n symud mlaen I clywed wrth Gerry Stone, Is-Gadeirydd Sefydliad y Merched, NFWI Vice Chair Gerald Stone will speak on Denman and a Cutre, Denman at Home. Gerald was elected to the NFWI board in June 2017 and is chair of Denman. Gerald chaired the Warwickshire Federation between 1999 and 2002, and she was a glutton for punishment because she went back again in 2012 and 2015. She has served on several federation committees and has held many other posts. She's a member of Hampton Lucy and Charlcot WI and committee and has been a member for well over 20 years. Thank you very much, Gerald. Croeso chi. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to join you all today for your Wales conference, All the World's a Stage. Bore da. Diolch am gwahoddiad I amino gyda hirch un Cynhadledd, Cymru, heddiw mae braf bod gyda hirch. I would like to give you all an update on Denman at Home. Making learning fun and accessible. Denman, a new chapter begins. Denman at Home was launched in May 2020 with a pilot programme of 10 courses that were offered free of charge during that month, and which attracted around 2,000 attendees. This trial and the subsequent work of the team undertook to gain the views of members. They gave us the opportunity to fine-tune the tools and resources, but also to support our tutors and students to adapt the Denman offer to respond to the ongoing restrictions on face-to-face gatherings. So, on the 8th of June 2020, Denman at Home offered its first paid course with 128 people in attendance. By the end of the week, the programme had reached over 1,000 people. From June to September 2020, over 22,000 attendees from across the UK and internationally had attended 130 Denman at Home courses online, including many who had not previously experienced Denman College. Talks, especially travel talks, have been very popular, but so have history, cookery, craft and exercise courses. Maybe Denman at Home is still very new to some of you, so I would like to explain the ins and outs of DAH, as we call it. What is Denman at Home? Well, it's our new series of informative, entertaining, shared virtual experiences launched during that lockdown in May 2020. From crockery and craft courses to history talks and exercise classes, there's something for everyone, members and non-members alike. And it's only £5 a session. What a bargain. But how do I access the courses? Well, all courses are delivered via Zoom, which can be accessed via smartphones, laptops, tablets or personal computers, as long as you are connected to the internet. However, if you don't have an internet connection, you can actually still listen to some selected talks via the telephone by dialing the UK access number for Zoom and entering the ID meeting message and passcode on the dial pad. And so what's Zoom again? Well, Zoom is a video conferencing website, platform or app. You don't need to have a Zoom account to join one of our courses, because after you've booked, you'll be sent a link with everything you need to join the course or the talk, plus a guide to using Zoom. If the link does not work, you just go to the Zoom website and select Join Meeting at the top right hand of the screen, where you can join a meeting by entering the meeting ID followed by the passcode. Actually, not dissimilar to what you have all done to join this meeting today. So how do I book a course for Denman at Home? Well, actually, only via the Denman website, www.denman.org.uk. And you'll need a debit or a credit card to make your booking. You'll receive an email confirmation, but like so many things, please check spam if you don't see it within about 10 to 15 minutes. That'll give you a booking summary, your personal details, the course you have booked, and the link, the meeting ID, passcode, and UK access telephone number to the Zoom meeting. If you have ever booked a course with Denman before, there is also an opportunity to set a password for your account. Actually, it's really worth doing because it will speed up the process later and allow you to look at all your bookings. Create an account by clicking on Set Password on your confirmation email. Then you can access your account via the Denman website, denman.org.uk/your-account, then click on My Emails. Where can I read about forthcoming courses? We don't have a brochure for our courses because we're constantly adding new ones to our schedules. But you can see course information on the Denman website and search for courses by name and date, and there's also a calendar. Is there a Denman at Home newsletter? Yes, there is. And you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter for up-to-date information on all forthcoming Denman at Home courses. Do sign up to get the latest updates on the offers, and actually we have new sessions as well coming up soon. I think it's the 11th of May. Do watch out, we're starting our first Comedy Night, something little different for all of us. Can I buy a Denman at Home Experience e-voucher? Oh, certainly you can, for yourself, and you can use them as gifts to give away to family and friends. Actually, I gave lots personally as Christmas presents, and they're just £5 and can be purchased via the Denman website. They're valid for 90 days from date of order. If you wanted to give someone an e-voucher but didn't have access to the internet, why not ask a friend who does have access to the internet and they can sort it for you? The current Denman at Home team is a very small one, but I am sure many of you who have already made contact with them have certainly experienced a high level of service and support. I can assure you that a lot of work goes on behind the scenes and in the background to make these online courses possible and varied. Hopefully, something appealing to everyone. Our online platform will continue in the future as it had reached so many people and has the added benefit of being more accessible for members with mobility challenges and those with personal constraints which make attending courses in person difficult, as well as more accessible in terms of cost. However, reaching out to members who are not digitally active remains a challenge during the ongoing government restrictions and regional variations as we move out of lockdown, as it does with so many other education providers. Online technology has helped us all to reach so many members, but we remain acutely aware of the digital divide and the need to resume face-to-face activities as government's guidance allows. The team is currently working on the new educational model, and as previously mentioned in our communications, one of the key steps is the consultation that the NFWI intends to carry out with all members about the future educational model. And I think with the number of people we have already reached, accessibility is definitely a key component of us being able to deliver our vision to all our members. Thank you for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you on a Denman at Home course very soon. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Gerald. Thank you very much, Gerald. Dwi'n siŵr bod hwnna wedi ysbrydoli ni gyd. I'm sure that has inspired many of us. And in listening to Gerald's talk, it's occurred to me that everything that we do, we can do online. and we can have ideas. And for those of you who are wishing to have ideas for the Wales Festival on the 30th of July, why not go and join Denman at Home and see if you can see how that is done. So that will give us another way forward in the future. Diolch, Gerald. Right, we move on to the next, which is llygredd plastig. Trychineb amgylcheddol allai helpu'r blaned. Plastic pollution and environment catastrophe that could help the planet. And that is going to be presented by Dr. Christian Dunn of Bangor University, he's a senior lecturer at Bangor University actually, and is also an associate director of the Bangor Wetlands Group. Dr. Christian Dunn is an active researcher and lecturer in wetland science, in particular wetland ecology, peatland, I can never say this, biogeochemistry, carbon sequestration, and the use of constructed treatments in wetlands. He is also a director of Plastic Research Centre for Wales and has ongoing research projects looking at plastic and microplastic pollution. So as you know, with our interests in these fields, he is the ideal person to have to speak to our conference today. Thank you very much, Christian. Over to you.
Thank you very much indeed. And I must say that I am genuinely honoured and slightly intimidated as well to be invited by the WI to speak. Intimidated because a year or so ago I asked my mother if she would like me to talk at her very small WI in Shropshire. And she looked at me and said, "Darling, do you think you could make your work sound interesting?" So there's nothing like being brought down to earth by your mother. So that's why I'm slightly intimidated. But I'm honoured because the WI is fantastic when it comes to many reasons, but for environmental campaigning, they are second to none. We've just been hearing about the work you've been doing with urban trees, pollinators, bees, climate change, and also as well, you have been leading the way when it comes to campaigning about plastic pollution with your End Plastic Soup. You folks have been amazing. And let us not forget as well that in 1954, it was the WI that established Keep Britain Tidy. So what a huge environmental pedigree you guys have. So that is why I'm honoured to be speaking to you about plastic waste. But let's start from the beginning when it comes to plastic. And it all starts with exploding billiard balls. Because in the mid-1800s, billiards, or across the Atlantic pool, was becoming more and more popular. And the makers of the balls wanted a cheaper alternative because at the time they were made from ivory. So they wanted to kind of make an alternative. And so they offered a competition of about $10,000 at the time for anyone that could come up with something that was as good as ivory for billiard or pool balls. And there were several kind of inventions, and one of them was the first real type of plastic. It didn't win the prize, mainly because the problem was the billiard balls kept exploding because it was quite an unstable product. But since then, since the mid-1800s, the process has been refined and improved. And in 1907, Leo Baekeland came up with what we now know as Bakelite, so the first type of really useful plastic. And since then, we have used plastic to improve just about every single aspect of our lives, from education, safety, entertainment, food preservation, medical supplies. Plastic has been fantastic, and it has helped modern life be what it is today. And we love plastic. In fact, we love it so much that since the end of the Second World War, when plastic production really kind of kicked off, we have made 8.3 billion tons of plastic. Nothing has been made by humans on such a vast and rapid scale apart from steel and concrete. 8.3 billion tons. And as I say, it has improved so much of our lives. But unfortunately, as we are all too aware, so much of the plastic that we are now producing is single use. We use it once and then we throw it away. And some of this is good. Some of this is really important. I personally wouldn't want to go into a hospital that didn't use single-use plastic items. They save lives. But so much of it is unnecessary. And it's this stealth plastic use which has crept up on us, and that is now becoming the problem. Because we not just produce an awful lot of plastic, we also throw away an awful lot of plastic. 300 million tons of plastics gets thrown away every single year. And the problem with plastic is one of its strengths, its durability. We like plastic because it's so durable, but that is the problem with it. It's so durable. Plastic doesn't rot away, it doesn't break down, it doesn't decompose like other products like like paper or card or anything else, or even metal would. Instead, it stays as plastic. In fact, it stays as plastic for hundreds, thousands of years. There's evidence to suggest that plastic will now become fossilized. So the geological indicator that we were here will be a thin layer of plastic. That is quite a scary thought. And what happens to this plastic that we throw away? Well, unfortunately as well, it's an uncomfortable truth that so much of this plastic ends up in our environment. Our disposal system is not perfect in this country, and other countries are far, far worse. So much plastic ends up in our environment, where ultimately often ends up in our seas and our oceans, where it produces these huge floating islands of plastic, and it washes up on our beaches too. And just to kind of give you some kind of scale of the problem here, I've told you now that plastic stays around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and will become fossilized. But to put that on a more realistic and a shorter timescale, it means that every single piece of plastic which you have ever used or ever come into contact with, unless it's been burnt or recycled, and a tiny fraction of plastic actually is. So every piece of plastic that you've ever used, so every toothbrush which you've ever used is still out there as a piece of plastic, as a toothbrush. It may be floating around, it may be on a beach, or it may be in a landfill, but it's still there as a piece of plastic. What happens to this plastic when it's floating around in our seas and our oceans? Well, I am sure that we have all seen some of the horrific footage on Blue Planet and other places as well of what happens to this plastic when it's in our seas and our oceans. It entangles and drowns all types of marine life. It fills the stomachs of birds and other wildlife as well, which thinks it's food, and it causes untold damage. It kills thousands of animals every single year. And the problem gets even more worrying as well, because this is the visible plastic that we see. This is the visual issues that we see. But there is another issue, and it's the invisible side of the plastic pollution crisis, and that is microplastics. I've told you that plastic doesn't break down, it doesn't decompose, but it does break up. It can break up into smaller and smaller pieces of plastic. And when these pieces become 5 millimeters or less, so about the size of a grain of rice, they're classed as microplastics. And everything that is made of plastic will produce microplastics to some degree. Two of the biggest sources of microplastics are clothing. So every time that you put on your washing machine, you can be releasing around 700,000 pieces of plastic fragments. And the other biggest source are car tires. 500,000 tons of car tire wear fragments are released across Europe every single year. Everything that is made of plastic will shed, to some degree, microplastics. And where are these microplastics? Where are they ending up? Well, we've known for around about 20 years or so that many of these microplastics are in our seas and our oceans, which is no surprise, because we can see the floating islands of plastic waste in parts of our planet. But a couple of years ago, I led a group of researchers with Friends of the Earth from Bangor University to look at inland waters in the UK. And it was the first time this has been done, or any kind of project like this has been done anywhere. And we found for the first time that microplastics were in every single bit of water which we looked at. This was from the River Thames right up to remote lochs in Scotland. There was microplastics in every single one of them. And this led us on to doing some more work. So we then started working with We Swim Wild and Laura Sanderson, who is a professional world swimmer. And we started collecting samples from all sorts of places, including the top of Snowdon, so the lake at the top of Snowdon. And again, we found microplastics right at the top of Snowdon. And now we're working with dozens of volunteers to lead one of the UK's potentially the world's largest microplastic citizen science project of its kind. And we're getting samples sent from all over the UK, from every county of the UK, and we'll analyse them at Bangor University for microplastics to help us map out where these microplastics are in our waters. We're also working with Surfers Against Sewage, a kind of a really leading organisation, along with WI, and actually work alongside WI sometimes, to look at the microplastic problem. And so there, again, we're looking at some estuaries and how microplastics move around in estuaries. Are they coming in from the sea, or are they going out with the rivers? How's this movement of microplastics working? But we're looking at microplastics in the air, in people's homes. So we're getting people to send us samples from their houses to find out how much microplastic is floating around in the air. And when we did this started this work 2 years ago, it was kind of quite novel. And everything we were finding was quite exciting. And since then, there has been an explosion in the scientific community, with people trying to find or finding microplastics in the most unusual places. And so when I ask you, where are these microplastics? Unfortunately, the truth now is they are everywhere. We've found them at the top of Everest, we've found them at the deepest ocean, we've found them in human cells, we've found them in placentas, we have found them in the rain, we have found them in absolutely everywhere. In fact, it would be harder now to try to find out where microplastics aren't. That is the problem. Microplastics have been found absolutely everywhere. And there's this one here, which is one of the ones I kind of want to highlight here, is that they estimate that all of us ingest around about a credit card size worth amount of plastic every single week. All of us are ingesting plastic. How are we ingesting it? We're breathing it in. If you take a deep breath now, you've probably inhaled some microplastics. It's in our food. It's starting off by getting it right at the bottom of the food chain in plankton, and it's working all its way up in the food chain. We are ingesting and eating microplastics with every single meal. What's the problem? Why do we care about this? I mean, plastic's inert. That's why we use it. That's one of the reasons why we love it so much. It doesn't have any effects, does it? Now, this is where we have to state that the problem of plastics and the problems of microplastics are, we don't yet know. We really, genuinely don't yet know the full consequences of what is happening when that plastic gets inside us. We know that microplastics or plastics can leach harmful chemicals. We also know that microplastics can act as vectors or kind of homes for a whole range of different microorganisms, some of them harmful. We do know as well that microplastics are having detrimental effects to certain parts of our ecology, such as soil health, and it is affecting some animals as well. Experiments and trials have been done. But the full problems, we just don't yet know. But the worrying thing is that more and more of these studies are finding more and more problems with microplastics. And what we can't afford, or what we hope is not going to happen, is that microplastics are the tobacco of the 21st century, or the lead, or the DDT of the 21st century. A product which we once thought was brilliant and has fantastic implications. Is it actually starting to harm us and have huge implications? That's what we hope is not going to be the case. But we need to kind of continue the studies. So what can we do about this? Okay, so it's starting to look like we don't want all this microplastics floating around, and we certainly don't want those floating islands of plastic waste, and we don't want our seas and our streets and our rivers to have plastic in them. So what can we do about the problem? Well, the first thing, as I've mentioned, is we need to discover and monitor the level of the problem. We need to find out the implications of this plastic in our environment and in our actual bodies as well, and in wildlife. We need to discover and find out the problems. And we also need to find out where these microplastics are. I've mentioned there some of the work that we've been doing, but in the Plastic Research Centre of Wales at Bangor University, we're looking at this in a whole range of different habitats and how it's affecting a whole range of different organisms as well. And it's crucial that we do that, because if we find out tomorrow, next week, next year, that microplastics are actually having a serious problem, then we need to know straight off where the hotspots of microplastic production are, how are they moving around the environment. We need to know that so we can then start to do something. What could we possibly do? Well, we could start to look at ways to remove microplastics from the environment, from waterways as well. And again, in Bangor University, we're looking, and other universities, we're looking at ways to do this. We're looking at developing enzymes to ingest and break down microplastics. And we're also looking at producing things like constructed treatment wetlands to filter out and hold back microplastics before they can kind of enter into our water systems. There's lots of things that we can do, use fantastic kind of techniques which are being developed around the world. That's one thing that we can do. But the most important, the thing that we have to start doing if we want to start tackling the microplastic pollution problem, the plastic pollution crisis, is we have to reduce our consumption of plastic. This is the crucial, fundamental thing that we have to do. And there are lots of ways that we can do this. As again, at the Plastic Research Centre of Wales, we're working at ways to develop alternatives to plastic packaging, looking at ways that we can recycle better, reuse better. There's lots of things that we can do. And there's lots of things that we can do on an individual basis, but crucially as well as a society. We need to start to change the way that we think about plastic. Plastic is fantastic. It truly is. But it is also a serious problem. And we need to start the whole process of what can we do? How can we reduce our use of plastic? And this is when the story, I think, gets positive. Because we know that we have this horrendous problem, this plastic pollution problem. But nothing that I know of has gripped the public's attention in environmental terms as much and excited more people than ever before to actually start to take action than the plastic pollution issue. People are lobbying governments. People are lobbying, campaigning with big businesses. People are getting out and taking direct action. They're doing litter picks. They're really passionate about doing something about the plastic pollution issue. And it's starting to have an effect. Governments and businesses are starting to change the way that they do things. They're starting to legislate to reduce our plastic consumption. Businesses are starting to realize that their consumers, their customers want things to be done differently. Of course, there is more that businesses and the government can do. And they should be doing that. And they should be doing it faster. There's all sorts of things that they could be doing. Making sure there's stronger legislation, making sure that if you produce plastic, single-use plastic, you are thinking about closing the loop. How are you going to collect that plastic? Not just relying on the consumer to get rid of it. What are you going to do as the business? There are so many more things that need to be done. But they're starting to do it. And they're only starting to do it is because the public, you, me, everybody else, is wanting to make a change with this. You know, the theme for this talk is, the stage and the star, and the fact that you're an actor in life. Well, the stars of this issue is the general public. They are standing up on their stage, no matter what sort of stage it is, and they are demanding change, and it's starting to happen. And now this is when we twist the whole thing around and bring the whole thing into a circle. We started this talk by saying, this is a catastrophe which could help the planet. And so far, all I've been telling you is all the horrendous things about, the potential horrendous things about plastic. But if we can show that people can show how interested and passionate they can be about tackling an issue like plastic waste, then perhaps we can now engage those people and engage that spirit of wanting change to tackle the biggest issues that we face. Things like, as have been mentioned previously in this meeting, things like biodiversity loss, climate change, climate breakdown. If we can get people excited and show that they can make a difference by doing something about plastic, perhaps we can then engage people, take them with us, create a huge global change for tackling the most serious issues that we face. Because they are all interlinked and interwoven. They're not separate. Although I'm talking about plastic waste and climate change and biodiversity loss. They sound separate issues, but they're not. They are all interlinked. The solutions for tackling them can be different and can be complex and need vast amounts of resources and engagement and societal change to make those effects. But they're all interlinked. And fundamentally, they are all simply solved by one thing that everybody can do to help change, make the planet better in so many ways, and that is not to waste. Plastic is a resource, and like all resources, it should be used wisely and it shouldn't be wasted. So let's not waste plastic. But while we're at it, let's not waste anything. And if we do that, we can start to make the planet a better place. Don't take my word for it. Take the words of the great Sir David Attenborough. When asked what is the single most important thing that everybody can do to help the planet, he said, well, it's simple. It's simply not to waste. Don't waste plastic, don't waste food, don't waste power. Live within our means. And if we can do that, then perhaps this plastic waste problem has shown us a way out of the climate crisis which we face. Thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr, Christian. Thank you ever so much, Christian. I think we have had a message there for us all. Certainly as for us all who are mothers, please have confidence in your offspring, because certainly that was certainly not dreary. It was certainly not dull. It was absolutely to the point and links in so very well with what we are doing, as you have already said. We have had many campaigns about plastic and packaging and all those things, and I'm sure that we will continue to that end to help everybody. And we've also had an awful lot of campaigns about waste too. But Rhian, I've just been thinking, oh sorry, hey Rhian, you'll have to take it forward next time. But certainly I think that we will have something that'll come down. But thank you ever so much for a very, very inspiring talk today. And I'm sure that we will all have learnt something from that, wherever we may be living and in whatever context we wish to take it forward. Diolch yn fawr iawn. And now we move forward to the result of the ballot for the Chair of the Conference of the Delegates of Wales. Yes, that's the official title of the Chair of Wales. It's such a mouthful, isn't it? And I shall ask Rhian to make this announcement formally. Diolch.
It gives me great pleasure to announce the result of the ballot for the Chair of the Conference of the Delegates of Wales Federation. The successful candidate was Irene Roberts, Ysbyty Ifan WI Clwyd Denbigh Federation, and I would like to congratulate Irene on behalf of all the staff. We look forward very much to working with you, Irene. Cynghyfarchiadau, edrych yn ymlaen yn fawr iawn at cydweithio gyda chi. Diolch.
Diolch, Rhian, a dwi'n siŵr nawr mae cyfle i Eirian i ddod lan i anerch y gynhadledd yma. This is Eirian's turn now to come onto the stage and to address the conference for the first time.
Well, fellow members, diolch am y geiriau caredig na fan yna, Rwan, Mair. Coming here today has been quite exciting for me in more ways than one, because I've not been out of the farm this far for over 12 months, and I'm sure lots of other people are in the same boat. And coming to a WI meeting on my first outing has been a very good feeling. And I think things are getting a bit better by now, and we will be able to meet face to face before long. I have a very hard act to follow in Mair. Mair has been such an inspiration to us all, and I hope I will be able to carry on this in these difficult times. Diolch yn fawr I ti, Mair, am yr holl waith caled o ti di wneud ar dy gyfnod fel cadeirydd Cymru. Mair, thank you very much for all the hard work you've done or your term as Chairman for Wales. I am also looking forward to working with the members of the Cardiff office who also work very hard to take care of us members in Wales, and same in London as well, of course. We are very fortunate to have such a wonderful team working on our behalf. Diolch yn fawr. I have been asked to tell just a little bit about myself, just so that you know what you're letting yourselves in for. I live on a farm in the village of Ysbyty Ifan, which has a population of less than 100 people, and they're mostly farmers. I am a rare breed, as I still sleep in the same bedroom where I was born. My husband Arwel, who's been a WI husband all our married life, And my grandson Griff was going to take over the farm, also live with us, with his girlfriend Ellen, who is on her final year in Bangor University. If you want to find Ysbyty Ifan on the map, it's dead centre of North Wales. It's the same mileage to the coast at Harlech as it is to Conwy. Ysbyty Ifan has been described as one of the most historical villages in North Wales. And the WI started here in about 1960, and I joined as a young thing around 1967. At that time, we used to be members of the Young Farmers Club, and then moving on to the WI was quite a normal thing. And it's good to know that we still work with the young farmers, isn't it? I was a member of both for some time. Being a young member at that time, I soon became social secretary and organising parties and Christmas parties and outings for members. And then some of the older members would be wearing tweed suits and some even wearing hats, and were quite disgusted with us wild young things, wanting different things from what they were used to. But being WI members, we got on famously by compromising, and soon I became a secretary and found myself on the Clwyd Denby Executive Committee. I became a member of Hamden, the Sports Committee, because I thought they were the youngest lot. I'm still on this committee, one of the oldest now, I'm sure. I didn't stay for long on that time on the Executive Committee due to family commitments. My mother was poorly and she died, and I also had two other relatives who were poorly, one with dementia and they were with cancer. I took care of them for about 12 years, but I still went to Ysbyty Ifan, WI, where the members were so helpful and supportive. Pretty soon I was back on the executive though, and held a few different posts before finishing again, because this time I'd been accepted on a degree course at Aberystwyth University. But things are never easy, are they? My daughter was a student there at the same time, and the tutors used to ask her very embarrassing question: has your mum done all her work? Has she finished the essays, you know? So, I still went to the WI this time, and after finishing my degree course, I went back on the executive committee, ending up as county chair a few years ago. I love history, I love music, I love all sorts of travelling, cooking, reading. At the moment, I'm researching into writing a book about Ysbyty Ifan. I do appreciate art, but don't ask me to draw anything. I love crafting. In other words, I appreciate and enjoy life. And as you heard, the WI has been a very important part of my life. And now it's an honour for me to give back a little to the organisation which has given me such a lot. And looking forward to the future, let's make sure all the values of the WI are carried forward, and we can carry on campaigning to local action, and not only to local but national and global issues as well, to make this a better world and a safer place, not only for us women but for everyone. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr, Erian, am y cipolwg I fewn i'ch bywyd chi. Mae sawl peth na o'n I ddim yn gwybod. A dwi'n siŵr byddwch chi, mae profiadau newydd mynd I fod o'ch blaen chi, a dwi'n siŵr byddwch chi'n cael cefnogaeth sefydliad merched a draws y sefydliad, ond beth bynnag, mwynhewch. Thank you, Arian. I'm sure that you will have many, many new experiences in the future, but you can be well rest assured that you will have the backing of the wider WI community. But whatever you do, enjoy every moment as I have. Diolch yn fawr. Right, if we now move forward to the competition results. As you are aware, it has not been possible to run a recruitment award during 2020, but you haven't heard from the 2019 winners, and so here are the results for that year. In the first category for WIs with under 25 members, and I'll do it in the time order of third, Chepstow WI in Gwent, who had an increase of 88% by moving from 17 to 32 members. Second, with a 133% increase from 9 to 21 members, was Swansea Central WI in Glamorgan. But first, with an increase of 144% from 9 to 22 members, was Llanafan WI in Ceredigion. Llongyfarchiadau iddyn nhw. The winning WI was unable to be with us virtually today, but they have sent a brief outline of their achievements, which I will read to you now. Firstly, we must apologise for not being with you virtually, but thank you for giving us this opportunity to explain how we increased our membership. At the end of our centenary year in 2018, Llanafan WI had 4 active members and the cottage, so we just couldn't give up. The cottage is a 200-year-old traditional Welsh cottage, which was given to Llanafan WI as we established ourselves 100 years ago. Until the recent pandemic, meetings had been held there without interruption, even during the Second World War, when members took oil stoves there to make jam for the war effort. It is the last Welsh cottage owned by a WI in Ceredigion, and we are proud of its tradition. But we needed to move on after our centenary events and recruit new members. Early in 2019, we advertised a meeting by posters around the local area and by word of mouth, and also by using the local social media sites to ask people to an evening WI to tell us what they wanted from the WI. More people came than we expected, and they told us exactly this. So we changed, moving from Thursday afternoons to Wednesday early evening meetings, with the kind of content required by everyone. And they all joined, and more followed. Sadly, we lost one of our older members at the end of 2019, but Llanafan WI continues. Well, that's a positive message to send to us all. And for the WIs, the second category is for WIs with 25 members and over. In third place, Skewen WI from Glamorgan, with an increase of 41% from 46 to 65 members. Second, Stow and Stanage WI Powys Radnor, with a 63% from 16 to 26 members. And in first place, with an 89% increase from 27 to 51 members, the Custard Queens WI of Ceredigion. Members of Custard Queens WI have prepared a recording for us which will explain some of their secrets of their success. So gobeithio bydd na rhywbeth yn dod nawr. Bydd.
Hello, I'm Alison and we are the Custard Queens, and we'd like to thank you for recognising our recruitment achievement. We asked our members to give us a word that described them best to them, and we'd like to share these words with you. I'll pass you over to Pat.
My 2 words are welcoming and support. We always have a meter and greeter on the door to welcome our members into our meetings and events. We email, phone and message them. Just keep in touch. Over to you, Yvonne.
Thanks, Pat. My 2 words were friendship and warmth. So to help to keep the friendships alive, we produced an informative newsletter on a number of occasions, actually, which the committee then delivered personally to each member. And we also included a small bag of goodies for them to enjoy. And over to you, Maggie.
Thanks, Yvonne. My 2 words are fun and laughter, which we believe lie at the heart of most things that we do. For example, we turned one of our meetings into a party, complete with games and competitions. Pat, our secretary, didn't win the Build a Snowman competition, but she did look particularly striking, wrapped in toilet paper with a carrot stuck in her mouth. And we have the photographs to prove it, haven't we, Pat? Over to you, Colleen.
Thank you, Maggie. So the first two words are community and caring. And it's true, CQWI does have a generous spirit. So one group of our ladies installed and cared for beds under the Lampeter Incredible Edible scheme, while a second group of ladies turned out every week to cook and serve surplus food as part of the Lampeter Food Project. In addition, our ladies described CQWI as vibrant and adventurous, citing the various theatre trips, cinema trips, and informal social activities that they get so much pleasure from. And now back to Alison.
Thank you. Well, I hope that this has given you a really good sense of who we are. We believe women are looking for a supportive and friendship environment, and this is something we offer in abundance. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
I am sure that you will agree with me that that has given a feel of the fun that this WI and many other WIs have. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Custard Creams, Queens WI, not Creams, Queens. Llongyfarchiadau i'r ddau sefydliad yna. A huge congratulations to both WIs. And I'm sure, as I have said many times in this today so far, that we are moving from strength to strength. And I just thought it might be appropriate to say that we are a growing organisation and that during the pandemic, we have gained 15,030 members and we have formed 33 new WIs. So that, to me, is something that you all need to be very thankful for. So a special clap from me. It now gives me great pleasure to announce the winners of the Rose Bowl competition, which is awarded to the federation who gained the highest points in the NFWI Wales competition held each year in the Royal Welsh Show, for a combination of handicraft, produce, floral, staging and interpretation of a chosen theme. The theme for 2019 was Gwynyn a Choed, Bees and Trees, and the winner was Gwynedd Carnarvon Federation. The next award, the next award is the Brecon Cup, which is awarded to the federations who gained the highest points in the NFWI Wales competition, again held each year in the Royal Welsh Show, for the best floral exhibit. The theme was the same, Gwynyn a Choed, Bees and Trees, and the winner was Glamorgan Federation. Llongyfarchiadau mawr i'r ddau federasiwn. A huge congratulations to both federations, and their photographs are on the screen for you to see. And I think at this point I will also remind you that the theme for the 2022 for both the Rose Bowl and Brecon Cup is Moroedd mewn argyfwng, Oceans in Crisis. This was, as you know, the original theme for 2020, but due to both the 2020 and the 2021 Royal Welsh Show being cancelled, the theme has been carried over to 2022. So I'm sure that that will raise a profile that Christian will be glad to see, and that we are certainly not wasting either our talent or what we have done. So now we will move forward to a short film, two short film, of the stories of the women which were found in the North East Wales Archives. The North East Wales Archives covers both Denbighshire and Flintshire archives and was awarded a Welsh Government grant to work alongside Theatr Clwyd to create monologue-style films which will retell rousing stories of strong and inspirational women during the 18th, 19th and 20th centuries. The stories are based around real women and were discovered in the archive collections held in Ruthin and Hardon. the spotlight focused on 4 lives, including a headmistress who devoted herself to education, a widow of a miner killed in the Gresford colliery disaster, a mother reflecting on postnatal depression, and the famous Marged Fach Ivan, an extraordinary female who was the greatest hunter, shooter and fisher of her time, as was written about by Thomas Pennant. We are delighted to have been given permission to show 2 of these films, and following on from these, there will be a lunch interval. I would ask, and please do not leave me, that you return to your comfortable armchairs by 1 o'clock for the afternoon session. Diolch yn fawr, newch chi eistedd nôl ac ymlaciwch, a newn ni nôl I weld yr hanes sydd wedi bod gyda ni. Diolch.
Our archives are not just about numbers and names.
When you take a good look, who knows which voice will reach out to you and what tales will be told.
Os ydych chi eisiau wybod lle dyn ni'n mynd, rhaid I chi wybod lle dyn ni wedi bod.
Let's remember the voices of our local women and listen to what they want us to know.
Look at the state of it. All this graffiti. It was when I was pregnant with my first that I started digging into my family history. I watched Danny Dyer on Who Do You Think You Are, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if we were related to royalty too? But then I found her. Patient name, Anne Owens. Patient number, 2431. Admitted to the North Wales Hospital Denbigh, formerly a lunatic asylum, on the 27th of January, 1875. Well, I was hooked. Obsessed, really. Old Anne Owens saved my life. Perhaps even saved the lives of my children. Stop looking at me like that. I just need a bit of air, that's all. I just need some light. Suffer the children to come unto me. Suffer the children to come unto me. Suffer the little children to come unto me. Suffer the little children to come unto me. That's what everybody says. Preaching from the pulpit. Speaking for God! You want to see Noah? What's the point if you can't feed them? Well, you can see them now, can't you? Look at them! Hmm? They are so hungry! And I have to keep my eye on them, otherwise they will start to chew each other. For the little children to come through skin and bone. Stop it now! I've told you, you can't eat each other! I'll take a knife to your throat! Oh, and he'll be home from his shift in the coal pit, and I'll have to hot the water, and I'll have to wash him down, and I'll have to feed him, and it'll be, ooh, tick-tock, yes, angry! Forgive me. Sorry, Uncle. I mustn't take the Lord God's name in. Please. Please. Can you get them away from me? Please. I killed my husband in his bath. I held him down hard. And he bubbled, and he bubbled, and he bubbled no more, and he left me with you two. And I want you two gone! I started behaving oddly, seeing things that I knew couldn't be there. And then I saw her, Anne, and I remembered what the records said, that she had chronic mania. Chronic mania. So I went to the doctor and I told her, and she said, well, we don't call it that anymore. We call it postnatal psychosis. And then she said, did you know it was hereditary? Totally treatable now. So I started the treatment, and that was that. Poor old Anne wasn't as lucky. She stopped eating, you see, and so they force-fed her, and, well, it flooded and damaged her lungs. She died of pneumonia. You know, some people say, oh, the past is just the past, but it's simply not true. The past is now. The past is tomorrow. Anyway. Thank you, Anne. God bless you. Sleep well.
Our archives are not just about numbers and names.
When you take a good look, who knows which voice will reach out to you and what tales will be told?
Os ydych chi eisiau wybod lle dyn ni'n mynd, rhaid i chi wybod lle dyn ni wedi bod.
Let's remember the voices of our local women and listen to what they want us to know.
Ydych chi'n aml cael eich camgymryd am ddyn, meddai? Na, atebais. Beth amdanoch chi? Roedd y dynion yn y dafarn yn chwerthin am hynny. Ac o'n i ddim medru helpu ond gwenu ar y llyngyr bach wrth iddo fo wingo'r fachgen fy nhafod miniog. Peidiwch a cheisio bod yn glyfar gyda fi, fachgen. Ond y ddieithriad a'r meddwon sy'n syllu arnaf erbyn hyn, mae pawb arall yn fy nabod i'n iawn, ac yn siarad yn gall efo fi. Dew, just fel nhw ydw i. Gynnau 2 lygad, trwyn a cheg, a just fy mod i'n dipyn yn wahanol i'r merched eraill. Ddim just y ffaith dwi'n gwisgo fel dyn, ond y ffaith medra i wneud pob peth mae dyn yn medru ond yn well. Os mae yna un ffordd o gorddi fi, dwedwch fy mod i ddim yn gallu wneud rhywbeth just oherwydd ges i fy eni gyda bronau. Be sy ar y tu fewn sy'n cyfri, hyd ar y tu allan? Beth bynnag, mae yna sawl dyn tew yn y lle yma gyda bronau mwy na fi, a ti'n mynd gweld nhw'n neud y glanhau na'r goginio na dwyt. Mae'n ffaith, a dwi'n golygu ffaith. Fedrai'r reslo gyda'r gorau'r dynion yma, a bellach, does dim rhywun ohonyn nhw wedi meiddio cystadlu yn fy nerbyn. Rhiofyn yn amlwg. Ac oedd o'n benderfynol gael ei ffordd efo fi. Wel, nes i gwylltio. Nes i bigo fo fyny o dan un ysgwydd a cario fo lawr i'r llyn. Cam o 3 golion o dre allan o'i thai a dechrau dilyn fi'r llyn. yn chwerthin a chlapio a gweiddi a Thomas yn trio i orau dod yn rhydd. Doedd dim pechod o'i nene mynd i digwydd. Rhaid dysgu gwersi'r diawl bach. Un chafiad cryf a fewn i'r llun a fo. Helbwch fi, dwedodd o. Iawn, atebais. Ond mae rhaid i chdi dalu hanner gini. Unrhyw beth, gweiddodd o, poeri dŵr allan o'i geg. Estonais law iddo fo, a halio fo allan o'r llyn fel brithyll. Wel, nes i fynd adre gyda pres yn fy mhoced noson honno. Does dim rhywun dyn di dod yn fy nerbyn ers y diwrnod hwnnw. O'n i'n lwcus gyda fy nhad. Oedd o'n gallu gweld rhywbeth ynddo fi. Oedd o'n gallu gweld o potensial oedd gynnau ar y ffarm gweitha protestiadau fy mam. Dysgodd i sut i bysgota, hela, seithi. Doeddwn ni beth angen iddo fo fan i mi dwywaith. O'n i'n rhôn rhosys mi mlaen, ac o'n i'n redig allan o drws wrth ei ochr. Dwi'n gollio. Gobeithio mae'n edrych i lawr arnaf gyda balchder. Gan wybod fod i'w ferch wedi lladd a seithi mwy lwningod gall dwsin o helfydd Confederation wneud mewn deg. Mae rai yn galw i frenhines y llyn, gan y gall nhw'n rwyfo fy nghwch o'r naill ochr i'r llall heb dorri chwys. Ac i ychwanegu, adeiladais yr cwch gyda dwylo fi fy hun. Dwi'n saer, yn gof, a chryd dwi yn briod, a wedi rhoi gendigeth i 3 o blant. Rhywbeth arall fedrai wneud am fedru ddynion ddim. Oes, gynnau morwyn, ond dwi'm yn gweld hi fel morwyn. Cyfeillgarwch gryf a llawn chwerthin. Dwi di nabod hi ers blynyddoedd. Mae'n dall fy ffyrdd a fy ffordd. Sy'n rhywbeth? Dyn ni ar yr un ffordd. Ti'n dall beth dwi'n sôn amdan? Dwi yn siŵr bod pobl mwy bydol yn dallt, ond ddim y rhaid i niwed. Duw, does dim ots gan neb beth bynnag. Dwi ddim ond un sy'n goddef pobl yn cario clecs amdano. Mae nhw yn gwybod bod yna ddigon o le yn y llyn, cofia. Wel, well i mi droi. Yn y ogleira yn y gwynt, ydw i yn fyr o un gwningen at heno. Hwyl am y tro.
2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Hey, check 1, 2, 2. Two, two, check 1, 2. Hey, check 1, 2.
Prynhawn da, a croeso nôl, gobeithio bod chi gyd wedi mwynhau ffilmiau fer o Danny jyst cyn yr egwyl. A dwi'n meddwl, falle, gobeithio bod chi wedi cael bwyd hyfryd hefyd. Falle bod chi wedi bod mas di fas yn ymlacio yn yr hoel. Falle bod chi wedi bod yn, wel, dod miwn a'ch golch falle. So ni'n gwybod beth chi wedi bod yn wneud, ond ta beth, dwi'n mawr obeithio bod chi wedi dod nôl. Good afternoon everybody, and I hope you all enjoyed the short films that we had earlier on and just before the break. I hope you all had the opportunity to have some time and have some lunch that you enjoyed, and perhaps you've managed to do other things like getting the washing in, or perhaps preparing the food for tonight's meal. But whatever you've been doing, I hope that more than ever you have come back to us for what will be a very fulfilling afternoon. We had a wonderful time this morning, and I'm sure that that will be equally so this afternoon. And without any further ado, I will welcome Tamara Harvey, cyfarwyddwr artistic, the Artistic Director of Theatr Clwyd. Tamara has been the Artistic Director of Theatr Clwyd since 2015, and in 2019 she directed the world premiere of Laura Wade's Home, I'm Darling, co-production for the National Theatre, which transferred to the West End and was nominated for 5 Olivier Awards, winning Best New Comedy. Other productions at Theatr Clwyd include the revival of Tennessee Williams' Orpheus Descending and the world premiere of Peter Gill's version of Uncle Vanya, winner of Best Production and Best Director at the Wales Theatre Awards. Before being at Theatr Clwyd, she was a freelance theatre director for 15 years, working on new and classic plays, musical theatre and in film, including the world premiere of From Here to Eternity with Tim Rice. She was born in Botswana, so we have something in common, Tamara, in that I was also born in Africa, so and grew up in Brighton, and now lives in North Wales. Gyda'r geiriau fach na, croeso mowr, a very warm welcome to Tamara Harvey. Thank you, Tamara.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you. Prynhawn da, good afternoon. Being asked to speak here today floored me for a moment. Although our stages have been dark this year, in many ways we've never been busier. We've been serving our community through food deliveries, through delivering creative packs, online events and plays, as a blood donation centre and as a creative hub for vulnerable young people and the children of NHS workers. So there's been very little time to reflect. And as a full-time chief executive and the mother of 2 small children, I haven't really stopped to think about who I am, what I do, or how I got here since I first started this role almost 6 years ago. So thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for inviting me to speak here today, and thank you for giving me a reason to stop and think. This is one of my favourite quotes, and we'll come back to him later. We're in the final design stage of a major capital redevelopment project here at Theatr Clwyd. The building is 45 years old and falling apart at the seams. It needs a complete renovation, but we have to be careful. As I get to know the bones of it more and more deeply, I've come to realise that a building like this, that has housed so many stories, both on its stages and as a centre for its community, with weddings and wakes, with birthday parties, award ceremonies, festivals, by this point in its lifetime, it's no longer made up of bricks and mortar. It's made up of moments in people's lives. I came here as artistic director almost 6 years ago, and not long after my arrival, we took down the 90s casings that were around the pillars in the bar just up there. Underneath, we found the original 1970s tiles, so we put a sign up saying, "Does anyone remember these?" And one of the first notes that was scribbled said, "I remember leaning against these tiles in the hot summer of 1976, the night I first met my man." Thinking about how I got to this moment in my life as I was preparing to talk with you here today, I realised that my life feels that way. A whole collection of moments in time. Those vivid flashes of memory that stand out against the rest and somehow make a story. So here's a little bit about my life and career told in moments. I'm not sure when I first fell in love with theatre. I certainly don't have a photo of it, though I did manage to dig this one out from around the same time. That's me in the centre, my memorable performance as the princess in the well-known George and the 100 Hares. No idea what that is. The first moment I remember, or perhaps I've just been told the story many times, is when I was playing Mary in the school nativity play. And Joseph knocked on the wrong door. So the narrator said, and there was no room at any inn, and Joseph knocked. And the child opened the door and said, yes, we've got a stable. And two kids further upstage opened their doors and looked miserable about having missed the chance to say their lines. So, of course, I grabbed Joseph and dragged him upstage and made him knock on those other two doors. I think even then, perhaps I was destined to be a director and not an actor. Through school, I was always involved in the school plays, always loved them, but was absolutely convinced that I was going to be a ballet dancer. Well, at the age of 4, I was going to be a ballet dancer in the evenings and a postwoman in the mornings, but by the age of 6, I'd dropped the postwoman bit. There I am. I was about to say bottom left, but I'm thinking in terms of stage left, bottom right. I really tried with the ballet dancing. In my teens, I was doing ballet classes 6 days a week. But by 16, I was beginning to realise that my knobbly knees, height, and frankly, my lack of talent might be a barrier to my success. I was still doing the school plays. Here I am as Sybil Burlington in Daisy Pulls It Off, vice captain of the upper fourth and conceited, beautiful, only daughter of very wealthy parents. I remember that moment. I wasn't at a particularly drama-y state comp in Brighton, but we had a maths teacher. There's always a teacher, isn't there? David Crompton, Bangor boy, born and bred, who was passionate about theatre. We did one school play a year, and he made it magical. It wasn't a game. He was strict, serious, demanded excellence from us, and got it. In my second year at high school, that's showing my age, in year 8, I was too young to be in the show, but I painted the scenery, endless bricks with a sponge. And then he let me stand in the wings during the performances, each of the 4 nights to watch. It was West Side Story, and Isabel Mant, who's still in the business, was Maria. It was mesmerising, that moment, peeking through the cracks. The whole, Crump always said, is greater than the sum of all its parts, and we rose to the challenge. In my 5th year, year 11, I was cast as Kate in Kiss Me Kate, and I had to choose rehearsals or ballet training. Kate won out, and I loved it. Ruined a metal tankard every night singing I Hate Men and slamming it down. But somehow I knew I wasn't an actor. I always had that voice in my head, standing outside of myself, seeing the bigger picture, but I didn't know what that meant. I knew you could be an actor. I knew you could have a job painting the scenery. I'd done that. And I knew there was a job pouring the orange squash in the interval for the actors, because I'd done that in year 7. But I didn't know of any other actual jobs in theatre. And then when I was 17, an opera company who were doing Benjamin Britten's Neues Flood at the Brighton Festival had an education scheme where you could apply to shadow a member of the creative team. I got on shadowing the co-directors, and after 10 minutes in the rehearsal room, I just knew. That moment. This was it. This was what I wanted to do with my life, directing. I'm not sure I've ever been as confident since, but in that moment, my last day on Neues Flood, the co-directors said to me, if you remember nothing else, remember this. Always say thank you, and always know when to say goodbye. To this day, it's one of the most important things I've learned. After that, everything became about how to do that, how to become a director. No one in my life was in theatre, but my parents, side note, They deserve a mention, my amazing, brilliant parents. In fact, in this photo, they're holding the baby, my baby, while I go off and do a rehearsal, have always said, you can be whatever you want to be. Plus, it turns out that the one way to make theatre seem like a sensible career choice to your family is by saying for years you want to be a ballerina. For me, how to become a director meant saying yes to everything. Every opportunity, every job, every not really job that came my way. I believed, and still do, that to be a director you need to understand every role in theatre. After all, on some level, everyone in the theatre, from those making the sets to the box office, from the lighting crew to the marketing team, they're all working to serve your vision, to bring to life the story you're helming. So I did everything and anything that I could. In my gap year, I went to Botswana, where my dad was then living and where I was born, when my parents were living there in '77, and persuaded the director of Mighty Song, the Performing Arts Festival in Gaborone, to let me direct a show. He said I could if I worked as assistant producer on the festival and produced and directed my show separately on my own time, off my own bat. I couldn't believe it when I found this picture. This is my first desk on my first professional job. I'm pretty sure he didn't think it would happen. Until about 2 days before opening night, he would introduce me as, this is Tamara, who thinks she's directing The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe for the festival. Here are some of my cast. I'd done an adaptation. Instead of Always Winter and Never Christmas, which doesn't make sense in the Southern Hemisphere, it was always summer and never a drop of rain. The drought would end when the witch was defeated. And the animals were all Botswana appropriate, so the beavers became meerkats, Mr. Tumnus and Impala, and so on. Here we are, just after the final performance. That moment, the first company I directed. There were more jobs. Acting assistant front of house manager at a theatre in Maine. Most vivid moment, running across the car park in what I didn't realise was a tornado, because we didn't have them in England, to get more buckets to put under the leaks. And at the end of that performance, Much Ado About Nothing, I couldn't believe it when I found that, because the internet didn't exist when we did that show. Having lost all power, standing in the darkness at the back of the auditorium as Benedict, in the dim emergency lighting, said the final line of the play, "Strike up, pipers!" And then silence. Of course, there was no sound system because the electricity was out. Then he said it again, slightly less confidently, "Strike up, pipers!" Still silence. And then in the darkness, a single voice from the audience. Da 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 da. And then more voices joining. Da 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 da. Until the whole theatre was filled with the sound of everyone singing. The magic of live theatre. And then more jobs. Assistant to a casting director in New York, running sound off Broadway when it was still using a ruler on the sound desk rather than a fancy computer. Administrative assistant at another off Broadway theatre, all whilst living on a sofa in that theatre's foyer, pulling a fake palm tree across for some kind of protection at night and getting up super early to use the showers in the dressing room before anyone else got in. I went to Bristol University and spent almost no time studying English and almost all of my time directing plays, including one by a friend in the year above, a drama student called Laura Wade, whose imagining of the 16-year gap in The Winter's Tale we produced in the basement, then a theatre, of the Bristol Old Vic. She's still my best friend and has never really forgiven me for the moment after the first show of 16 Winters when an audience member came up to us and said, "I loved the scene changes," which of course were the only bit she hadn't written. So I think maybe the Olivier Award for Home I'm Darling 2 years ago might have gone some way to make up for it. Though of course I still tease her that the Olivier Award was mainly awarded in recognition of the scene changes. Side note, I love the way that photographs can lie. It looks like we're having the best time and saying how wonderful the rehearsals are. And in fact, this is me saying, God, I hate having my photo taken 3 months after having a baby, and her saying it's only been 6 months for me. After Bristol, I went back to the States and did a directing internship at the Shakespeare Theatre of New Jersey. That summer, the theatre held a symposium, and the guest speaker was one Patrick Spottiswoode, Director of Education at Shakespeare's Globe. Sam Wanamaker, Patrick said, always conceived of the Globe as a three-legged stool with theatre and education and research in perfect balance, each supporting the whole greater than the sum of all its parts. I want to work there, I thought. So on my return from the States, I wrote to them, saying, "Can I have a job, please?" And amazingly, they wrote back, invited me to a meeting where they said, "You don't want to work in education, you want to be a director, so we've given your CV to the theatre team." And as it happened, Tim Carroll, who is one of the finest directors of his generation, now running the Shaw Festival in Canada, was looking for an assistant for his production of Macbeth. Thus began 4 years at the Globe, assisting Tim. Best moment? Standing in the pouring rain on the opening night of The Golden Ass by Peter Oswald, watching Mark Rylance as a donkey, holding the audience in the palm of his hand, everyone dripping wet, as he spoke the final transformative speech. The first play I directed in London at the Finborough Theatre was the UK premiere of Tennessee Williams' Something Cloudy, Something Clear. The second was Laura Wade's adaptation of W.H. Davis's Young Emma. Told you he'd come back. We rehearsed in a ramshackle room at the back of an old warehouse by the river in West London. The only good bit about that rehearsal room is you can get the best bacon sarnie in town from a tiny cafe on the long walk from the tube. One lunch break, Laura walked in to find me on my phone, looking apparently white as a sheet. "What's wrong?" she mouthed. I scribbled on my notepad, "Mark Rylance offering me my own show at the Globe." 9 months later, on the opening night of my production of Much Ado in the theatre that had been my home for 4 years, she gave me, as my opening night present, that same scribbled note, framed. After the Globe, I started to direct a bit more, assist a bit less, spending 15 years as a freelance director. I had a year at the Bush Theatre as Associate Artistic Director. Those were some of the shows, helping with the move from the old Bush in a small room above a pub to its new home in a Victorian library. Best moment? When we took 66 books to Westminster Abbey. We'd commissioned 66 playwrights and composers to write their versions of each of the 66 books of the Bible to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the King James Version, which we then staged, because we were clearly insane, with 130 actors. We opened the New Bush Theatre with a 24-hour performance, and then took some of the 66 to Westminster Abbey for a mere 12-hour overnight show. As Associate Director, I was managing the event, so I was kind of roaming, and at around 2 a.m, I glanced across the Abbey to see England's then Poet Laureate, Carol Ann Duffy, who had written a breathtaking version of Song of Songs, snogging her girlfriend in Poet's Corner. She must have seen me too, because when I saw her later, she said, "I've always wanted to do that." But in all those years as a freelance director, I never really had a home. And early in 2015, I got a phone call asking if I'd be interested in applying to become the artistic director of Theatre Clwyd. I'd spent several childhood holidays in North Wales, thanks to that same teacher, David Crompton. Our state comp in Brighton had what it grandly called an outdoor pursuit centre in Snowdonia National Park. It was actually 2 dorms and a slightly ramshackle kitchen, and it would be our base camp for hikes up Snowdon in driving sleet and rain, which was the first time I ever drank tea. But I'd only been to Theatre Clwyd once before, so I came up to visit on a freezing February weekend. The moment I walked in the doors, I knew that I wanted the job. That moment. Here was somewhere that I could maybe, hopefully, make a difference. We're the largest producing theatre in Wales, one of only a handful in the UK that still have all of our making teams, the set builders, the costume makers, the props makers, the scenic artists. In 5 years, our turnover I say this, not this year. Our turnover has gone from 5 million to 7 million pounds. In the year before the pandemic hit, we welcomed over 200,000 people through our doors to see a Theatre Clwyd show, and another 200,000 people saw our shows elsewhere in the UK. We reached over 40,000 young people in North Wales through our work in schools and with social services. Last year, we created Theatre Clwyd Music, taking on the music services in Flintshire to ensure that they survived, and with the plan to make sure that in the future every child in Flintshire has the chance to learn a musical instrument, irrespective of their means. In the last 3 years, we've won a UK Theatre Award for Best Musical Production, The Assassination of Katie Hopkins, and Olivier for Home I'm Darling. And this year, in recognition of our work during the pandemic, serving our local communities and our wider freelance community, we were named the Regional Theatre of the Year by the Stage newspaper. I feel like I can say all of this without being too egotistical, because very little of it is thanks to me. It's thanks to our amazing, passionate, talented team who work here, our core team of 100, our relief staff of around 40, our 140 volunteers, and the 300 freelancers who work here every year. Best moment so far? I think my colleagues might say the most amusing moment was when I had to step into the panto at the last minute. I'm glancing over at Ben. I got a phone call just after 7 p.m. I was trying to shove broccoli into my children at the time, to say our leading lady had twisted her ankle during the opening number, and was it okay to cancel the show and send everyone home. The thing about panto, which I didn't really realise until I came here because it wasn't part of my childhood, is that it's the moment in the year when everyone comes together, everyone in our building, everyone in our communities who the youngest audience member last time we did it, not last year, the youngest audience member was 6 weeks old, and the oldest, I know this because he wrote to me, was 104. People book in February, and they bring their children and their grandchildren because they've been coming since they were young. They wear Christmas jumpers and sparkly shoes, and it's joyful. So no, we couldn't send them home. I hate being on stage. I can just about cope with doing this, but my real place is in the dark at the back, watching a story I've directed. But I didn't want to send the audience home, so I took a deep breath, jumped in the car, donned the frock, and walked on, script in hand, held steady by our amazing panto company and an audience who I think appreciated the effort, if not my acting skills. But for me, best moment? It's really tough. There are a lot of moments. I'll give you 2. My second Christmas here, we produced a version of The Nutcracker, reimagined by a fledgling theatre company, Paper Finch, which took place in 23 spaces across our building. The audience might be taken on any one of 4 different routes, and there were puzzles to solve, riddles to unravel, a spider in the basement who'd lost her books, a tiger in this very room afraid to get out of the bath, a cowboy in the old TV studio. As I was walking into the theatre for the final performance, a couple were walking out, and they stopped me and said, "We've just dropped off our 2 girls. They came to the first show, and then afterwards they went home and they pooled their pocket money and their Christmas money, and they booked for 3 more performances so that they could do every route." My second best moment was actually during the pandemic. I was walking into the building, which we'd had to close down weeks before. A theatre should never be empty. It should never be silent. It should be filled with laughter and singing and shouting and stories and noise. But here was our mad, brilliant building, entirely silenced. Weeds were growing up through the cracks in the pavement outside. Inside was shadows. But as I made my way up the stairs, I heard music coming from the Anthony Hopkins Theatre. I crept in the back, and there, alone in the middle of our stage, was George. I'd forgotten he would be there. At the beginning of lockdown, his dad had called. George had won a place to the Royal Ballet School that was starting in September, but with everywhere in lockdown and with George and his family living in a small terraced house in Mould, he had nowhere to train. So they asked if he could use our stage. And in that moment, standing at the back of the Anthony Hopkins. As I watched him spin and leap across our stage, I knew that somehow, even in the darkest of days, music and dance and theatre will find a way. So those are just a few of the moments in my life as a director, and now an artistic director. They're strange jobs to have because nothing is ever finished. No show is ever complete. No season of work is ever perfect. There's just a moment when it's time to let the show belong to the actors and walk away. A moment when you need to know that it's time to say goodbye. Tennessee Williams was interviewed before the opening night of Something Cloudy, Something Clear in New York, years before I did it in London. It was his penultimate play, and he'd fallen completely from grace. After the wild success of his early work, he'd struggled with addiction, but more than that, he'd kept experimenting as an artist. Everyone wanted him to write another Streetcar Named Desire, another Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. But he wanted to keep exploring, trying new forms, new styles. So by the time Something Cloudy, Something Clear came along, almost no one would do his work. It was produced in a tiny off Broadway theatre. And the interviewer asked him, given his decline in popularity, what drove him on. "I keep writing," he said. "Sometimes I am pleased." I very rarely feel like I'm getting it right, as an artistic director, as a wife, as a mum. But I think of Tennessee Williams, and I keep going. I hold on to the moments, and sometimes I am pleased. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Tamara. And as you can see, with all Tamara's experience, you can see why she has been the campaigning voice for the arts and theatre in Wales during this pandemic. She knows her stuff, she knows the different aspects, and that, I think, has been wonderful, and I'm sure that you will continue to do that. I have to say, when I think about when I was listening to what you were saying, I can remember at school being in cast in a play. I can't remember what the name of the play was, and the only line I can remember was, "Bag? Bag, you call me an old bag?" Now then, I do have many bags now, and very often I dip into them to find out what's in them. And no doubt I should be having much more time to do that. That production never got to stage. Don't know really why. It could have been the people, the cast, and me in particular. But now I have been in centre stage, and I have perhaps taken one of the things that you always do, Tamara. You said you say yes, and I never say no. And we never say never either, do we? We continue and find new ways of working. But that is where we are, and thank you, Tamara, for everything that you have done. I am sure Theatre Clwyd, when it comes back to full being and the life within it, will be something that we will all look forward to joining you once again when we come over. But thank you very much indeed. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Well, at this point, it would be usual for the chair, for the Federation Chair of the host county, for the next conference to speak and to invite everyone to attend. But unfortunately, we do not yet have a date or a venue for the 2022 conference. But I can tell you it will be hosted by Pembrokeshire Federation, and so it will be held somewhere in beautiful Pembrokeshire. And indeed, I look forward to travelling just about an hour's drive instead of the 3 hours to be here today. But there will be details available as soon as possible, and I know that we will all move forward and look forward to be hopefully united, not virtually but in person next time. Normally then the Federation Chair, Jenny Longland, would be the person who would be coming to speak next. But as Jenny, because of social distancing and the numbers that we can have here today, cannot be here, it is my very great pleasure to invite Gerald Stone to come up once again and have the stage, as they say. Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you, Maya. On behalf of everybody today, those present and those watching on our virtual conference, we want to thank you very much indeed for chairing our conference today. Something completely different, but as usual, you've taken it on the chin and it's just been wonderful. And thank you too for your last 4 years as the Chairman of Wales. Your enthusiasm and dedication has really shone through and been appreciated by everyone. We'd like to say enjoy your retirement, but to quote yourself, I've been thinking that possibly you still have a lot more to give, Maya. So we thank you very much indeed for all the time you've given and for today. And we say, Joch yn fawr. And we have a little something for you, Maya.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Gerald. A diolch yn fawr am rhain, a fi dod i nhw lawr fyna am funud. Ond fwy na dim, diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd am ddod i'r cyfarfod rhithiol yma heddi. Dwi'n gobeithio bod chi wedi mwynhau fod â'ch gilydd, mewn ffordd wahanol, ond hefyd bod chi wedi mwynhau pob siaradwr ni wedi cael. Ni wedi cael siwt gymaint o variety, nag I gallai weid. We have today, thank you very much for everything, and thank you, Gerald, and everybody for the flowers. I thank you all for being at this virtual event today, and I hope you have enjoyed. You've enjoyed being here, you've enjoyed the feeling of being together, and you've enjoyed the speakers. We have looked at our campaigns, we've heard about developments at Denman at home. We've been inspired by all that work that has been done with plastics. I have to say that will stay in my mind for a while. And Tamara, we have enjoyed you as well. Everything has been something, we've all got something different to take away from this day. Can I wish you all the very best for the rest of the year, and to look forward to some face-to-face meetings at some time. As you said, Tamara, always say thank you. So diolch yn fawr iawn I chi gyd. Thank you. Diolch am eich cefnogaeth. Diolch am fod yn ffrindiau. A fwy na dim, diolch yn fod aelodau. Thank you very much for being WI members. Thank you very much for being friends. And thank you for being you and for your support. And as Tamara has said, you know when to say goodbye. So, goodbye. Thank you.